It was a calm and ordinary day on Earth. People went about their business, unaware that their lives were about to change forever. Across the world, from the quietest villages to the busiest cities, there was no sign of the destruction that was about to rain down on them. The sky was clear, the sun was shining, and life was as it had always been. But that peaceful world was about to be shattered. Without warning, the atmosphere grew heavy, as if the world itself held its breath. A loud, deep hum echoed from the sky. It started as a soft vibration, a strange feeling in the air. It only lasted for a second, but it was enough. People looked up, confusion in their eyes. What was that sound? It was like a deep, throbbing pulse that rattled the air. Then, just as quickly as it had come, it stopped. But this was only the beginning. As the hum faded, the skies darkened. What had once been a clear blue sky was now filled with strange, dark shapes. At first, they looked like clouds, but they weren't. These shapes were too defined, too structured. They didn't belong in Earth's sky. In an instant, the sky was filled with them, massive, metallic ships descending from the heavens. Ships unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Their shapes were angular, cold, and intimidating, each one large enough to cover entire cities. The world held its breath. People froze, staring in disbelief. They didn't know what they were seeing, but they knew it was something terrifying. And then the first wave of these massive ships unleashed their power. In a split second, the ships opened fire, sending blasts of energy down to the ground. Buildings crumbled. The ground shook. Chaos spread in every direction. There was no time to react. People screamed, running in panic as explosions rang out across the globe. The invaders had arrived. On the streets of New York, people were frozen in fear, looking up at the ships that hovered above them. In Tokyo, citizens were already gathering in shelters, desperate to protect themselves from the unknown enemy. In London, emergency sirens blared, but it was too late. The aliens had arrived, and they were already striking. At the United Nations, world leaders scrambled to understand what was happening. They tried to communicate, to make sense of the situation, but it was impossible. The ships were unlike anything they had ever encountered. The technology was far beyond anything humans could have imagined. It was clear that Earth was no longer in control. Then a voice boomed from the sky, reverberating through every speaker system, every communication device, and every building on Earth. It was cold, emotionless, and full of authority. Humanity, you are weak. You are insignificant. You have no place in this universe. Kneel before us, or be wiped from existence. The voice echoed across the globe, sending a chill down the spine of every human who heard it. The invaders, whoever they were, didn't come to make peace. They came to conquer. They came to dominate. And they were giving humanity a choice: surrender or perish. In the chaos of the first few hours, many thought it was some sort of bizarre joke or a mass hallucination. Surely it couldn't be real. But then the explosions kept coming. Buildings were reduced to rubble. People who tried to run were struck down by beams of light that seemed to come from nowhere. The aliens had power. They had the ability to destroy anything and anyone in their path. Within hours, governments around the world were in disarray. The military tried to fight back, sending jets into the sky, but they were torn apart by the alien ships' advanced weaponry. Nothing they tried worked. The aliens' technology was too advanced. Their ships moved faster than anything humanity could match. And worst of all, it was clear they had no intention of negotiating. As the day turned to night, Earth was plunged into darkness. The once vibrant cities were now quiet and empty. The glowing lights of alien ships cast an eerie glow on the world below, as the invaders continued their assault. But in the midst of the chaos, something unexpected happened. In the deepest corners of Earth, hidden away from the eyes of the invaders, a small group of humans refused to give up. They saw the destruction, the terror, and the hopelessness, but they also saw something else. A chance. A chance to fight back. Dr. Harper, a scientist who had spent years studying alien life, was the first to recognize the true threat the Zyrex posed. She had been researching strange signals that had been intercepted for years, signals that now seemed to come from the ships in the sky. Her research had been dismissed by others, but now it was all that could save them. "There's a weakness," Dr. Harper said, her voice barely a whisper as she looked at the data on her screen. "If we can figure it out, if we can understand their technology, we might just stand a chance." But time was running out. The Zyrex were not only invading Earth, they were preparing to wipe humanity from existence. The first cities had fallen. The second wave of ships was on its way. The resistance, small and scattered, was all that remained. Humanity had one chance, and it was slipping away. As the alien ships hovered above the planet, their dark shadows casting over the ruins of cities, Earth survivors were left with one question. Could they turn the tide? Could they fight back against the overwhelming might of the Zyrex and their advanced technology? The answer was uncertain. The stakes had never been higher. The world was on the brink of extinction, and the invaders had shown no mercy. The fate of humanity rested in the hands of the few who refused to kneel. The Zyrex thought they would win. They thought humanity was weak, helpless. They had come to Earth to destroy, to conquer, and to rule. But they underestimated one thing: the human spirit. The story of humanity's struggle against the invaders had just begun. The world was in chaos. After the first devastating attacks, humanity's hopes were beginning to dwindle. Cities lay in ruins, millions were dead or missing, and the global military forces had been scattered or wiped out. The alien invaders, the Zyrex, continued their relentless assault, their ships hovering menacingly above Earth's major cities. The message from the invaders was clear: surrender or face total annihilation. Every attempt by humanity to fight back had been futile. Conventional weapons couldn't touch the Zyrex ships, and any defense efforts were met with brutal retaliation. Earth had never known such power, and the fear of complete destruction was beginning to seep into the hearts of even the most optimistic. But there was a flicker of hope in the dark. Among the survivors, a group of brilliant scientists and military leaders, led by Dr. Harper, were working tirelessly to find a way to fight back. The Zyrex had underestimated humanity's capacity for ingenuity. While the world's governments were scrambling, some survivors had begun to form pockets of resistance. They weren't large, and their numbers were dwindling by the hour, but their resolve was unbreakable. Dr. Harper, who had spent years researching alien technology, had uncovered something vital. The invaders' ships, as advanced as they were not invincible. There was a weakness, a flaw in their energy systems that, if exploited, could bring their entire invasion to a halt. However, finding a way to exploit that weakness would not be easy. It was buried deep in the alien technology, a secret that had been well guarded. The Zyrex had no reason to believe that humans could understand their advanced systems, let alone defeat them. Yet Dr. Harper believed that if they could get close enough to one of the motherships, they might be able to sabotage it. This idea was nothing short of reckless, but it was the only chance they had left. The resistance, small as it was, rallied around her. They weren't soldiers. They weren't warriors. They were everyday people, scientists, hackers, engineers, and civilians, who had lost everything, but who were willing to risk everything to stop the Zyrex. As the resistance prepared for their daring mission, The alien ships above Earth continued their terror. The Xyrex did not care about diplomacy or negotiations. They were conquerors. For them, the invasion was an exercise in superiority. They had come to Earth not just to destroy, but to humiliate. To show humanity their place in the grand scheme of the universe. The Xyrex had conquered countless worlds before, and Earth was no different. They believed they were invincible, and in many ways, they were right. But the humans were not giving up. They couldn't. They had nothing left to lose. The first step in their plan was to steal a small piece of alien technology from one of the fallen ships. It wasn't much, just a fragment of the energy core that powered the Xyrex's weaponry. But it was enough. With it, they hoped to reverse engineer the invaders' energy shields and understand how they worked. Every minute they wasted felt like an eternity. The Resistance knew they had to act fast before the Xyrex launched another wave of destruction. On the ground, things were starting to fall apart. Entire cities had been evacuated, but there was nowhere to run. The Xyrex were everywhere. The air was thick with the hum of their ships and the occasional flash of energy beams that would level entire buildings. There were no safe places left. People who had tried to escape into the wilderness found themselves hunted by alien drones. The Resistance had to stay hidden, careful not to attract attention. But each passing day, it became harder and harder to avoid the Xyrex's watchful eyes. In one of the Resistance's underground bunkers, Dr. Harper and her team worked feverishly. They knew that time was running out. The Xyrex weren't just attacking. They were setting up their dominance. Massive warships had landed in the oceans, deploying alien ground forces to patrol and secure Earth's most valuable resources. If the humans didn't act soon, the Xyrex would solidify their control over the planet, making any counterattack nearly impossible. But the Resistance refused to believe that the Xyrex were invincible. They had something that the aliens didn't: human resilience. Even as the odds stacked up against them, they kept fighting. They kept pushing. They kept hoping. And in the darkest hour, as the Xyrex began their final strike against Earth's last stronghold, the humans made their move. Using the alien energy core they had stolen, they initiated their plan. A plan that could either save humanity or doom it to extinction. The fight wasn't over. The world wasn't ready to surrender. The Xyrex may have thought they could crush humanity with a single blow, but they had gravely underestimated the human spirit. The fight for Earth had just begun. The Resistance's plan was set in motion, but nothing about it was easy. Dr. Harper and her team had carefully mapped out the Xyrex's patterns, studying their ships and understanding the flow of their attacks. The aliens were methodical, their tactics precise, and their power unmatched. Yet the Resistance had found something they hadn't expected: a weakness in their energy shield, a flaw that could be exploited if the right method was used. The clock was ticking, and every moment they spent in hiding made their mission riskier. Dr. Harper stood over a holographic display, tracing her fingers over the alien schematics. "This is our best shot," she said, her voice steady but laced with tension. "We can't waste any more time. If we don't disable their shields, the Xyrex will tighten their grip on Earth. This will be our last chance." The rest of the team nodded, each of them aware of the stakes. They weren't soldiers, but they had been forced into this fight. Many had lost families, friends, and homes to the alien invaders. Some had been scientists and engineers working in peace, now turned into warriors driven by desperation and survival. The fear was there, but it was overridden by something stronger: the desire to fight back. To show the Xyrex that humanity wasn't going to kneel. The first phase of the plan was simple: steal alien tech. A small team of Resistance fighters, led by Captain Lena Ortiz, was sent to infiltrate a downed Xyrex mothership near what was once Chicago. The goal was to retrieve a piece of their energy core, something that could be reverse engineered and used to disable their shields. The location was heavily guarded, but they had no choice. They had to get in and out without drawing attention. Any sign of disturbance, any misstep, could lead to the complete destruction of the team. As night fell, Lena and her squad crept through the shadows, moving silently across the ruined city. The once thriving metropolis was now a desolate wasteland, its skyline filled with crumbling towers and broken windows. The Zyrex ships loomed above like dark giants, casting ominous shadows over the earth below. The only sound that could be heard was the soft whisper of the wind and the occasional hum of alien drones patrolling the area. The team had been trained to move silently, but they were still human, and every step felt heavy, as if the weight of the world rested on their shoulders. "We're close," Lena whispered into her comms, her eyes scanning the horizon. "Stay alert. We can't afford to get caught." The others nodded in silence, their nerves palpable but controlled. They had trained for this moment. This was no longer just about survival. It was about turning the tide. They reached the wreckage of the mothership, a massive structure that had crashed into the city center. The air was thick with the smell of burning metal and alien fuel. The Resistance had learned quickly that the Zyrex ships were not just advanced in technology. They were almost indestructible, built to withstand the harshest environments. The team made their way inside the mothership's hull, cutting through the thick metal with tools they'd managed to scavenge from their own bases. Every movement had to be precise. One mistake could set off alarms, drawing every Zyrex soldier to their location. Once inside, they navigated through the dark, twisting corridors of the ship. Strange alien symbols covered the walls, glowing faintly in the dark. The structure was alive with a kind of humming energy, as if the ship itself was breathing. After what felt like hours of sneaking through the ship, they finally found it, the heart of the Zyrex energy core. It was enormous, pulsating with a strange, eerie glow. The Resistance team's mission was clear: extract a small piece of the core without setting off any alarms. But as Lena and the others moved closer, they noticed something strange. The core wasn't just a power source, it was also a trap. As soon as they touched the core's surface, a high-pitched alarm blared throughout the ship, loud enough to wake the dead. "Abort the mission. Move out," Lena shouted, her heart racing. They had only a few seconds before the entire ship would be swarming with Zyrex forces. The team scrambled to extract the energy piece, but it wasn't going to be easy. The walls around them seemed to pulse and hum, as if the ship itself had a life of its own, rejecting their presence. Blasts of energy suddenly shot toward them, narrowly missing as the Zyrex security systems activated. The team ducked behind cover, but it was too late. The Resistance was no longer hidden. The Zyrex had detected them. "Go, go, go," Lena shouted, her voice hoarse with panic. The squad ran through the dark halls, dodging the blasts, moving with the speed of desperation. But as they reached the exit, a massive explosion rocked the ship. A section of the hull collapsed, cutting off their path to safety. They were trapped. Lena and the others fought back as best as they could, using what little alien tech they had, but it wasn't enough. The Zyrex were too strong. It seemed like the mission was a failure. But just as the Zyrex soldiers were closing in, something unexpected happened. One of the Resistance soldiers, Marcus, hacked into the ship systems using a portable device. He triggered a chain reaction, causing the ship's self-destruct mechanism to activate. "Get out, now," he screamed as the ship began to shake violently. The team made a break for the exit, but the explosion was close. The ground beneath them cracked open, and a shockwave of energy sent them flying. They barely managed to make it out alive, but they had what they came for. The piece of the Xerex core was in their hands. It was damaged, but it was enough. They could still use it. As they stumbled back to their base, battered and bruised, the team knew the odds were stacked against them. The Xerex would stop at nothing to crush humanity. But with the core fragment in their possession, they had something the invaders didn't expect: the chance to fight back. The victory at the Xerex mothership had come at a great cost. The resistance was battered, their numbers dwindling, and their mission barely completed. But the small fragment of the alien core they had recovered was the key to turning the tide. As Dr. Harper and her team worked tirelessly to analyze the alien technology, they discovered something even more troubling. The Xerex were already preparing for their final assault on Earth. They had begun systematically destroying key military and civilian targets, and their new fleets were massive, poised to finish what they had started. The time for hesitation was over. Humanity had to act, and they had to act fast. The resistance was divided on the next move. Some argued they needed to strike at the heart of the Xerex Empire, take down the motherships, disrupt the alien supply lines. Others insisted they focus on Earth, rally the remaining survivors, and prepare for a defense that would give humanity a fighting chance. The debate raged on in underground bunkers, while above them, the Xerex prepared for their invasion's final phase. The aliens had been patient, confident that Earth's resistance was nothing more than a nuisance. But the resistance had something the Xerex never counted on: unity. In a war room deep beneath the remnants of what was once New York City, Dr. Harper's voice was steady as she spoke to the remaining leaders of the human forces. "We don't have time to waste. The Xerex believe they're untouchable. We need to strike at their weakest point, their command ship. It's heavily guarded, but it's also the heart of their entire operation. If we can disable it, we can cripple their invasion." The plan was risky. Their intel told them that the Xerex's command ship was the nexus of their entire fleet. It controlled everything from their energy shields to their attack strategies. Taking it down would disrupt the entire Xerex network, potentially breaking their hold on Earth. But there was one massive obstacle: General West, one of humanity's most trusted military leaders, had betrayed them. In a desperate bid to secure a deal with the invaders, West had surrendered to the Xerex, believing Earth's only hope was to collaborate with them. His betrayal had left humanity divided and fractured, and it gave the Xerex an upper hand. Without General West's inside knowledge of human military strategies, the resistance would have to rely entirely on their own instincts and Dr. Harper's knowledge of alien technology. The mission to disable the Xerex command ship would be led by Commander Ilara, the last of the human generals who had not fallen or betrayed them. Ilara was known for her courage and unshakable resolve, but even she understood the magnitude of what they were about to undertake. The command ship was an enormous fortress, heavily protected by swarms of alien drones and fleets of Xerex warships. It was like trying to take down the core of an entire empire. But Commander Ilara had no choice. The fate of Earth rested on her shoulders. The team was assembled. A small group of the best soldiers, scientists, and engineers left. Each had their role. Lino Ortiz, the battle-hardened captain, would lead the assault on the command ship's outer defenses. Marcus, the hacker who had once saved them on the mothership, would once again use his skills to infiltrate the Xerex systems. And Dr. Harper would work alongside the engineers to reverse engineer the Xerex technology and ensure they could disable the ship's energy shields at the right moment. The moment they launched their assault, they knew there would be no going back. The Xerex would unleash everything they had to stop them. If they failed, Earth would fall. The final assault began with a blast of energy as their makeshift fleet of human ships rocketed toward the command ship, hidden in the vastness of space. The space around the Xyrex command ship was alive with movement as alien ships swarmed to intercept them. The fight was intense from the moment they entered the Xyrex-controlled territory. Human ships were small, agile and fragile compared to the massive Xyrex warships, but they were fast. Lena and her team had trained for this moment, and they used every trick in their arsenal to avoid direct confrontation with the enemy. Every time a Xyrex warship locked onto their position, they would weave, duck, and dodge, making it hard for the aliens to get a clear shot. But the Xyrex were relentless. They had the numbers, the firepower, and the will to finish humanity off once and for all. As they closed in on the command ship, the resistance team could see the scale of the enemy fleet in all its terrifying grandeur. The ship was a massive fortress, its hull gleaming with alien energy. It dwarfed the human ships, casting a long shadow as it hung in the void. The Xyrex had built it to be indestructible, yet they hadn't accounted for humanity's determination. "We're almost there," Lena said through her comms, her voice steady but filled with tension. "Keep your focus. We breach the outer defenses, then we make our way to the heart of the ship." As they neared the command ship, the resistance fighters launched their attack. Explosions erupted around them as human ships fired on the outer turrets, creating chaos and confusion among the Xyrex forces. But as they fought their way in, they were met with a devastating counterattack. A barrage of alien energy weapons struck their lead ship, knocking it out of formation. The rest of the team pushed forward, but now they were outnumbered. It was clear the resistance was fighting for survival. Inside the command ship, Marcus was working fast. His fingers flew across the console, hacking into the Xyrex systems, trying to find a way to disable the ship's energy shields. Sweat dripped from his brow as the Xyrex defenses fired back at them. He knew that one wrong move could cost them everything. "I've almost got it," Marcus grunted through the comms, his voice tense. "Just need another few seconds." But seconds were all they had. Commander Ilara and Lena were leading the charge into the heart of the ship, facing off against waves of Xyrex soldiers. They fought with everything they had, knowing that this was the moment. If they could make it to the core of the ship, they could turn the tide. Suddenly, as the team neared the heart of the ship, something unexpected happened. The Xyrex began to retreat. The once unstoppable invaders, who had seemed so powerful just days ago, were now in full retreat. The human forces had broken through their lines. And then it hit them. The Xyrex were realizing something. The humans weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to win, and that made all the difference. As the resistance reached the core, the energy shields fell. Marcus had done it. The Xyrex were no longer untouchable. The resistance had succeeded in disabling the command ship's defenses, and the invaders' once perfect strategy began to unravel. But as they watched the enemy begin to retreat, the team knew the war was far from over. This was only the beginning. The Xyrex retreat was unexpected, and the chaos it caused was almost as disorienting as the attack itself. The command ship, once the nerve center of their entire invasion, was crippled. Its shields were down, its systems were malfunctioning, and its once imposing fleet began to scatter. The invaders had not anticipated a counterattack this strong, and as the resistance scrambled to consolidate their victory, the full scale of what they had achieved began to settle in. Commander Ilara stood before the shattered remains of the Xyrex command ship, looking out into the vast expanse of space. The once mighty invaders were in disarray. Their ships were now isolated, their coordination falling apart as the Earth's resistance pushed forward with renewed hope. But even in the midst of their triumph, Ilara knew the fight wasn't over. The Xyrex may have been retreating, but they were far from defeated. This was merely a battle in a much larger war. "We've crippled their leadership," Dr. Harper said, her voice barely audible over the hum of the emergency systems on their ship. "But they're not going to just roll over. We've given them a reason to fight harder now." The Resistance's fleet was battered but intact. Several of their ships had taken heavy damage, but they had survived, and they were now positioned to strike at the weakened Zyrex fleets. The humans, having gained an advantage they never thought possible, began to consolidate their forces. The idea that they could actually push the Zyrex off Earth was no longer a distant fantasy. It was within reach. However, there was one problem that still loomed large: General West. His betrayal had caused the initial rift between Earth's forces and the Resistance, and despite the progress they had made, the divisions were still there. Many soldiers, civilians, and Resistance members had lost faith in the idea of defeating the Zyrex after his surrender. To some, West treason was a reminder of how fragile their hope was. But Alara knew that the only way forward was unity. Humanity had no other choice. The fight for survival was bigger than any individual, bigger than any betrayal. "We need to hit them hard and fast," Alara said, rallying her troops. "While they're scattered and confused, we take the fight to them. We can't waste this opportunity." The plan was set. They would hit the remaining Zyrex fleets, break their remaining lines of defense, and force them to retreat completely. The Resistance now had the confidence of victory, and it was time to press the advantage. Humanity's final stand against the invaders was not going to be one of desperation. It was going to be a stand of strength. But in the midst of their preparations, a disturbing message came through. The screen flickered to life, and General West appeared, his face cold and unemotional. Behind him, the unmistakable figures of Zyrex officers stood like sentinels. "We underestimated you," West's voice echoed through the ship. "I thought surrendering would save Earth. I was wrong, but it's too late. The Zyrex are preparing a final weapon, one that will wipe humanity from existence. There is no way you can win now. You've delayed the inevitable. The final blow is coming." The message ended abruptly, and the gravity of what West had said hit the Resistance like a hammer. A final weapon? What could the Zyrex have built that could crush them after everything they had already endured? Was there really a way to stop them now? "What is he talking about?" Lena demanded, her face drawn with concern. "What final weapon?" "We don't know," Dr. Harper said, her eyes scanning the ship systems. "But whatever it is, we need to prepare for it. We can't let them unleash whatever they have left. We're not out of this fight yet." As the Resistance members gathered, their minds whirling with the implications of West's words, one thing was clear. The Zyrex weren't retreating in defeat. They were regrouping for something far more dangerous. And that's when the first signs of the new weapon began to appear. Across the world, cities were already starting to experience strange phenomena. In some places, the ground trembled with increasing intensity. In others, the sky began to darken, as if the sun itself was losing its warmth. The strange energy pulses emanating from the sky seemed to originate from an unknown source, growing stronger with every passing hour. Dr. Harper and her team rushed to analyze the data. "This isn't just an attack," she said, her voice tinged with dread. "This is something much worse. The Zyrex are tapping into Earth's natural resources, draining the planet's core for energy. If they succeed, they can trigger a global collapse. They'll turn Earth into a weapon against us." The Resistance was once again faced with an impossible decision. The Zyrex had been using advanced technology to siphon power from the planet itself, preparing to unleash a cataclysmic event. If they allowed it to continue, the entire planet could be destroyed. But how could they stop something so large, so overwhelming? Lena stepped forward, her face set with determination. We have to take the fight to them again. We can't let them complete whatever they're doing. We're running out of time. Time was slipping away faster than ever, and the resistance had no choice but to once again rally all their remaining strength for a final push. Dr. Harper had a plan, but it would be the most dangerous move they had ever made. They would have to infiltrate the Xyrex's energy facility, located deep in the planet's crust, and destroy the system they were using to drain Earth's core. It would take all their skill, every ounce of their knowledge, and every bit of their courage. But if they failed, Earth would be lost forever. As the Resistance gathered their forces for the final assault, they knew this was the moment that would determine the fate of the entire planet. The Xyrex were desperate. They were pulling out all the stops to secure their victory. But the Resistance had something the Xyrex didn't: human determination. And with that determination, they set their sights on the final mission, the mission that could either save Earth or doom it to destruction. The air was thick with tension as the Resistance prepared for their final assault on the Xyrex energy facility. Their mission was simple in its objective, but impossibly complex in execution. They had to infiltrate the heart of the Xyrex's operation, deep beneath Earth's surface, and destroy the alien technology siphoning the planet's energy. If they succeeded, Earth might stand a chance. If they failed, the Xyrex would have everything they needed to finish what they had started and bring about humanity's extinction. Dr. Harper paced back and forth in the war room, her eyes glued to the holographic maps of the planet's crust. The Xyrex had set up their energy siphoning facility near the Earth's core, hidden in a vast network of underground tunnels and caverns. Every moment they spent discussing the plan brought them closer to the abyss. The countdown to the Xyrex's final weapon was already in motion, and they knew they had mere hours to stop it. "We have one shot at this," Dr. Harper said, her voice steady, though her mind raced. "If we don't get to the heart of the facility and destroy their core reactor, Earth will be lost. The Xyrex can trigger a chain reaction, collapse the planet, and harness the resulting energy to fuel their fleet. If we don't stop them, they'll have unlimited power. The entire human race will be wiped out in a matter of days." Commander Ilara nodded. "We're ready. We've trained for this moment. Let's do it." The team that had gathered for this final mission was a tight-knit group: soldiers, engineers, scientists, and civilians who had fought side by side since the first days of the invasion. They had seen their world fall apart, lost friends, and endured unimaginable hardships. Now they were prepared to give everything to save the planet. There was no turning back. The plan was simple: infiltrate the underground Xyrex facility, sabotage their reactors, and destroy the power grid that was draining the planet's energy. A small team would lead the charge while the rest of the Resistance kept the Xyrex forces distracted. But it was the kind of mission that could easily go wrong. The tunnels were crawling with alien patrols, and the Xyrex would be expecting them. As the team made their way toward the surface entrance to the facility, they moved with purpose, but also with a quiet knowledge that the end was near, no matter the outcome. In the moments before they boarded their shuttle, Lena turned to her comrades, her expression hardening with determination. "This is it," Lena said, her voice resolute. "We either win this fight or we don't. But we're going in there to win. We don't stop until the job is done." The shuttle launched into the sky, breaking through the remnants of a once vibrant Earth, now scarred and broken by years of war. The journey to the facility was tense and quiet. No one spoke as they passed through layers of damaged atmosphere, now filled with the remnants of destroyed Xyrex ships and debris. The hum of the shuttle's engines was the only sound, as though the entire world held its breath in anticipation. Once they arrived at the facility's surface entrance, the Resistance team quickly disembarked, taking cover in the shadows of the alien structure. The entrance was guarded by automated defenses and a handful of Zyrex drones, their glowing eyes scanning the terrain for any sign of intruders. But the humans were too quiet, too fast. They had trained for this. Lena led the charge, her team following close behind as they stormed through the entrance, quickly disabling the guards and breaching the first set of doors. Inside, the facility was vast, an enormous labyrinth of tunnels, catwalks, and chambers that extended deep into the planet's crust. The walls were lined with strange alien technology, humming with energy, and glowing with eerie blue light. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. It was as if the facility itself was alive, as though the Xerex had created something that pulsed with malevolent intent. Marcus, the team's hacker, moved ahead with a portable device, disabling security systems and opening doors. His fingers flew across the interface, bypassing alien encryption, and silently taking down the facility's defenses. But they didn't have much time. The closer they got to the core reactor, the more intense the resistance became. Zyrex drones patrolled the corridors, and automated weapons began to activate as alarms blared. The team was forced to move faster, fighting off every threat that came their way. "We're getting close," Lena said, wiping the sweat from her brow. "Keep moving." As they reached the final chamber, the heart of the facility, the sheer scale of the operation became apparent. The room was enormous, its ceiling high enough to swallow a small city. In the center of the room, the Zyrex core reactor stood, a massive structure that pulsed with an unearthly energy. Surrounding it were complex systems that were siphoning the planet's energy, draining Earth's very life force into the Zyrex's machines. "This is it," Dr. Harper said, her voice full of awe and fear. "We have to destroy the reactor. If we don't, everything we fought for will be for nothing." But as the team prepared to move in, something went wrong. The Zyrex had anticipated their every move. The core reactor's energy field surged to life, and a loud voice echoed through the facility. "Intruders detected. Protocol 113 initiated." The room suddenly erupted in a blinding flash of light as the Zyrex core reactor activated its defense systems. Automated turrets emerged from the walls, firing bolts of energy that seared through the air. Drones poured into the chamber from every direction, their weapons trained on the human team. The odds were stacked against them. "Fall back," Ilara shouted as the team scrambled to find cover. The ground shook with the force of the Zyrex's counterattack, and the air was thick with smoke and debris. The resistance fought back with everything they had, firing on the drones, ducking behind catwalks, and using every ounce of their training to stay alive. But the situation was growing worse by the second. "We need to disable the reactor's defenses," Marcus shouted, his fingers moving quickly over his portable hacking device. "It's the only way we can make it through." Lena and Ilara fought their way toward the control panel, holding off the drones long enough for Marcus to access the systems. Sweat dripped down their faces as the countdown to the reactor's destruction began. "I've got it," Marcus shouted. "The defenses are down." In that moment, everything came together. With the core's defenses offline, Dr. Harper rushed to the control panel, typing in the necessary override codes. The reactor began to power down, its energy systems shutting off one by one. But it wasn't enough to simply turn it off. They had to destroy it completely. Dr. Harper activated the final sequence, triggering a chain reaction that would overload the core and make it explode in a controlled manner. "We need to leave." "Now," Ilara shouted. The team raced for the exit as the reactor began to hum louder, and the facility's walls shook violently. The countdown was ticking. They didn't know if they'd make it out in time, but they didn't have a choice. They ran through the dark corridors, fighting off drones, barely avoiding energy blasts and pushing themselves beyond their limits. The very earth beneath them seemed to tremble as the reactor began its meltdown. Finally, they made it to the surface, just as the facility exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The shockwave threw them off their feet, but they managed to stay conscious long enough to see the result. The energy siphoning operation had been destroyed. For a brief moment, there was silence. Then the world erupted in celebration. The resistance had won. The Zyrex were no longer in control of Earth's energy. Humanity had delivered a devastating blow to their invaders. But even as the team embraced their victory, the battle wasn't over. There would be more fights to come. But for now, they had won a critical battle, a victory that would resonate through history.